Okay.
Awesome.
In that case, I shall get started. Right. So let's move that out of the way. Okay. So this is about uh, calling and conducting Stedman. I'm going to focus a bit more on the calling side than the conducting side on this deliberately. As a bit of a step into it. But I will be mentioning a few things, a few conducting tips along the way, as it were. Just to break it in a little bit, I'm going to start off with Stedman Triples, and then talk about the different styles of the way the compositions are written out, so you learn how to call call Stedman Triples. Stedman Caders and higher is a lot easier because it's all the same way, but triples is different because it is triples. Why not? Because Stedman's not complicated enough already. So let's start with the calling positions in Stedman triples, because there are a number of ways that you can see the different calling positions. So sometimes you'll see these numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all nice in numerical order. They're all these numbers are based off the calling position of the 7. So this is calling position 1, calling position 2, double 6, 7 down when you're about to go in slow. 3, 4, 4 5 when you're about to go in slow. 4 is first whole turn, blah, 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 blah. You can all read there what's going on. Now, there are also some other calling positions which you will see in some compositions, which are S, H, L, and Q. So the good thing with these calls, S, H, L, and Q, they're all what's called twin bob, which means that for an S, you call Bob, then another Bob immediately, 1 6 after another. This is quite handy when you've got someone who's just getting to the grasp of how to actually how to ring Stedman, because if they're a double 6 7 dodging up the back, then they do a triple dodge and a triple dodge. They still got to go in the way they're expecting to go into. So that's the good thing about twin bobs or any multiple of 2. It means that they just are still going to go in the way they're expecting. You don't get caught up by one bob and always a quick or slow this time. It's a little bit simpler. And in fact, some compositions have an S, then an H, or an S and then an H and then an L. So that would be six bobs in a row, and they're still going to go in the same way. But an S actually is 2 calls, and an H and an L and a Q. They're all 2 calls. When you're just finishing your double 4 5 down dodge, just before you go in slow, that's your first bob at S. And then when you've made thirds going in, you've just led, you're about to do your point seconds. That's when you call bob again for your second S. Those 2 calls together are an S. If you want to use calling positions, it's a 3 and a 4. 2 ways of describing the exact same thing. So that's when you're going in slow, just 4 5 before and just after you've gone in slow. S. H is your 2 half turns. So when you're making thirds, just before you make your first half turn, that's the first H call. And when you've just made your thirds and you're about to do your second half turn, that backstroke, handstroke, sorry, that is your second H. Okay? So they're around the half turn. So slow, half. L is based around last whole turn. So when you're doing your lead, point lead, that first lead, that handstroke is when you call your first L, because you're just starting your last whole turn. And when you're doing thirds on your way up to 4 5, that again, first handstroke is when you call your second L. All the calls are at handstroke, by the way, in for Stedman, whether it's bobs or singles. The reason is you are meant to be giving everyone a whole pool's notice before anything changes. That's the way it's meant to be for all our callings. Okay. The one that we tend not to do that for is when you say that's all, but we'll skip over that for a little bit. But when you make a call, the effect happens at the handstroke of the next 6. So you make your call at the handstroke of the preceding 6. Okay, so that's why here it's the handstroke of the thirds as you're about to go out. Why it's there, and when you go up to 4 5, someone's just made a bob and is doing their 4 5 down. Okay, so it's and the bell's at the back. Just keep doing another set of dodging at the back. So that's what your S, your H, and your L are. You got chording positions 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 are also Q. It's when you do your 4, 5 down and you're about to go in quick. And then as you go out quick is your second Q call. Okay? So these calling positions, the numbers, they're based off the position of the 7 for where it starts in the playing course. But your S, your H, your L's, and your Q's, in theory, could be called from any bell. So there's a very simple bob course touch that you can call of SLQ here, or any rotation of it, and you can call that from any bell you want. You can even call it from the 1, which will be slightly interesting because you actually start halfway through your double Qs. So the 1 starts here, so go Stedman, the first hand stroke you go into seconds place, bob for your second Q, although it's your first call. You then do your double 4, 5 up, you do your double 6, 7 up, double 6, 7 down, double 4, 5 down is your first S, so you call a bob there, and then you go in, and as your hand stroke lead of your first whole turn, you do your second S, plain, come to your L's, call a bob there, call a bob there as you're about to go out, 4, 5 up, 6, 7 up, 6, 7 down, 4, 5 down, you come to the first Q, bob, and you come back here, and it's going to come rounds as you, as the treble, are leading. So you can actually split the calls up between the start of the course and the end of the course, if that's where your calling position happens to be. So that's something that you can work out. And you can call this from any bell. It works from the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, 6, or the 7. You just have to be mindful of where you are in this line to where you're calling your S's, your L's, and the Q's, and whereabouts in that rotation you are. Okay. Now, these calling positions 1 to 14, the way this is written out, they are not tied into the number of sixes in the course, which seems a bit weird because there's 14 sixes in the course and they're in sequential order. What I mean by that is, if you're calling something with an S and an L, and then it says there's a bob at 9, so it's slightly confusing because it's just wrapped over the page here, but you're doing your double 4, 5 up, and there's a bob at 9, you make the bob. You don't do the 6, 7 up and the 6, 7 down. You've just done your 4, 5 up coming out slow. The next piece of work you do is your 4, 5 down about to go in quick. So you've jumped to 12. You've gone straight from 9 to 12. Okay. So if you have an S, an L, a bob at 9, and a Q, well, you got to call your bob at 9. Then immediately you've got to call a bob at Q, the first one as you go in, and the second one as you go out. So you've got to be mindful if that's what the composition is asking for. And I'll show some examples of this in a minute. Okay. Now, just to confuse things even more, there are also compositions which list the sixes in the course. So not the calling positions, but if it says a bob at 1 and a bob at 3, it means the first 6 you call a bob, the second one you call a plain, the third one you call a bob. So I'm going to show how those are represented so you know which one is which. Okay? So I haven't got too many slides here, but I've got a couple of pictures, and I'm going to go through some of these different types of compositions that are straight from the diary. This is a diary from a couple of years old, so if you've got this year's diary, it may not be the exact same. I usually find that I keep my diary electronically, and the methods are pretty much the same. So once in a while, I'll buy a new diary. So let's start with a relatively simple quarter peal composition. This one here, the second one on the left-hand side. So the first thing to note is when you start, like most other compositions, especially like what Chris Omani showed last week, they start with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for Bob Marley. You don't show the 1 because the 1's constant. That's not the case for Stedman because it's a principal. It moves around as well. So you'll see the number 1 listed. The other thing you'll note is the starting position is 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6. And on high numbers, it's 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. The reason is it's a 2, 3, 1 is because that's what it's showing as the last row of the 6 of which you started. Because Stedman, again, being slightly quirky, starts the rounds as the 4th row of a quick 6 by default. You can do other things, but let's keep it simple. By default. So you ring a hand stroke, where would you call your bob at 1, and then you ring your backstroke, and the backstroke change will be 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6. Here you don't see the number 7 at the end, because with these callings, the 7 is unaffected. It's unaffected with the S, it's unaffected with the H, it's unaffected with the L, it's unaffected with the Q. It doesn't actually change position. So they've just dropped it off the end, but it is calling, all these compositions are called based off if you're ringing number 7. So it has an S and an H in the first course. So just go through, call your first S, call your second S, then immediately call your first H and your second H. And then that's it for the rest of the course. That's why there's an X here, because it's not the 1 call, it's 2 calls. We saw last week with, and some ones I'll show you here in a minute, that some of them sometimes have a dash for a bob and an S for a single. If it's an X under one of these letters, it means there are 2 bobs, okay? So 2 bobs at the H, so S, 2 bobs at the H, which is 4 in a row. There's a blank at the L, you don't call anything there, there's no Q here. So you just keep on ringing the plain course, come back to it again. In the second course, another 2 for the S, another 2 for the H. Keep on going through, blah, 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 blah. Third course comes along, there's nothing at the S, so you've got to remember not to call when you do your 4, 5 down. Do your 2 for the H, then do another 2 immediately for the L. So again, 4 calls in a row. Then you go out, come in quick, go out. And that's the end of your course. As you see here, it says repeat 4 times. If you do that 4 times, then you'll get back to rounds. Now, I'll give it a slight I'll say a couple of words of advice here. It's a bit hard to tell here because, like I said at the start, it's 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6. Now, at the end of the 3 courses, the 6 is back in its home position. It's been moved about during it. You can see it's here and here, so it's definitely affected. But at the end, it's back dodging with the 7, as it would at the start of the plain course. But the other bells have all been shunted around, but they've been shunted around in a sequential way. The 1 is now where the 5 was. Okay, the 5 is now where the 4 was. The 3 is now where the 2 was. So the 4 is now where the 3 was, the 3 is now where the 2 was, and the 2 is now where the 1 was. So why you don't actually see it in this change, in the 4th row of the quick 6 at the end of this course, you will get 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So that's a bit of a signpost to make sure that you've actually got yourself in the right spot at the end of the course. We'll just see the numbers go, bing, dun, dun. You can see the bells in 4, 5 dodging together, the 5 and the 1. You'll see that happening before the 4th row comes up, so you know you've got those bells right. The 6 will be dodging with you, so you know you've got that right. So really, you just have to watch out for the 4th row when the 2 comes in quick, and you get a 2, 3, 4 from the front 3 bells, and then you'll get the 5, 1 in 4, 5, 6, 7, and 6, 7. And the same thing happens the next time. You'll get 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 6, 7. 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. So that's how the part ends work. Okay? The one tricky thing with this, I find, is how on earth can you remember which of the 3 courses are you in? You've called it 3 parts already, and your brain's getting a bit tired. Like, oh God, is this SH or is it HL now? I can't remember. The 6 is a good signpost for this particular composition, I find. Like I said, if the 6 is dodging with you in 6, 7 in the normal way, as in like it's doing a 6, 7 down while you're doing your 6, 7 up, You've just come to the end of the course. You've just finished your last L. You're about to start afresh. Look for your signpost for that fourth row of the quick six. So you know you're about to do an SL. Then, if the six is, hang on, it was probably easier to go backwards actually. Here, if the six is here, so you've just done two SHs. If the six is in this particular position, you're actually going to dodge with it, I'd say backwards, but not really backwards. You're doing a double 6-7 down when it's doing a 6-7 up. Okay? Now, if you come across it that way, then that means you've done your two SHs. This forthcoming course is going to be an 8L. So that's the signpost for that one. The other one is when the six is just leaving the front. It was the quick bell at the end of the first course. You'll pass it as you're leaving 6-7. It's leaving 4-5. Your paths cross when it's the 6-7-4-5. That means okay, it's definitely an S. You're in the second course here, so it's an SH. Okay, so those are my little signposts just to remember, because your brain does get tired. You're doing the same thing 5 times over. Oh God, which one am I in? Just find little signposts for that to find out which course you're in to know how to actually go through it. Okay, so okay, let's take a look at the, which one was I going to do? Second composition on the right-hand side. Okay, so this is slightly more complicated. These ones here on the middle on the left, they're, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They all follow the S, H, and the L's and the Q's that I've mentioned before. This one's slightly different because you've got a 2 and a 14 up the top. Okay? These are the calling positions I was talking about, okay? They're not which six you're in, but they are actually calling positions, okay? So you've got your X's for your double twin bobs for the S's and the L's. But let's quickly go through here and why there are brackets here, okay? So you start off here with a double bob in for S. So going through, yep, bob, bob, go through, playing for 5, playing for 6. Then you got an LL for your lasts. Okay, then it comes in and says, okay, no call for the Q, but there's a single at 14. Okay, because there's a single at 14, as you're doing your double 4-5 up, you make the bob. The bells behind you make the single, and then you jump to here because you've just done a 4-5 up, so you're about to double 4-5 down, about to go in slow, so you've gone immediately to here. You don't actually get to the course end because you've just gone from 14 to 3 effectively. You don't get to 1. So what's shown here is the course end if there happened to be another 16 planes and you actually got to the course end, but you never actually get there, okay? So it's saying if we could get the course end, you would get this change, but it doesn't actually happen. So that's why you have the brackets there, okay? Now, because you've called an S at 14, a single at 14, you jump immediately to 3, but the next course has an S immediately. So you need to go single, bob, bob. So you've got to be awake. If there's a single at 14, like I talked about 9 as well, if there's a call at 9 in the queue, you have to immediately start calling the queue. Same thing with 14. If there's a call at 14 and there's a call at S, you need to call that immediately as part of the new course. So, and you get the same thing again. So single 14, immediately bob, bob, plane, bob, bob. Oops, lost my cursor. Yeah, 9, 10, 11. Nothing for Q. And again, there's another single at 14. So single, bob, bob. And that's where you get here. And again, there's brackets around here because, again, single at 14, you don't get to the course end. And same for the course after that. You don't, single 14, you don't actually get the course end. The next one is another SL, but there is no call at 14. You do get to the course end. So that's why there's no brackets, because you do actually get to 3, 4, 6, 1, 2, 5, 7. Okay? Normal twin bobs here, SHQ. H. Now here's another one, S, and that's under the 2. Okay, so you do one more dodge and 6-7 up. You do your double 6-7 down, and you call single. Now, all of you who know your Stedman Triples singles know that you do reverse 6, and you effectively go back to spots. So you go and you go back to 1. So you've effectively done your course. It's 2 6s long. That's all it is. Double 6-7 up, double 6-7 down, reverse 6th, and you're back to double 6-7 up. So after 2 6s, you get to 4 2 6 3 1 5. It seems hardly worth writing it, but that's exactly what's happened. Then afterwards, you've got your an S, an H, and a Q, and an H again. Okay, and that whole thing will get you to 1,296 changes. So this one was 15 courses, just repeated each time. This is all of them written out for you, so you can actually see what's going on. Okay. Andrew Davies, got a question or comment? You're on mute, mate.
No, it's a repeat. You've got to repeat the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, repeat once. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there's a repeat. Beg your pardon. I missed that down the bottom. Yes, quite right. I was thinking it was a little bit short to get all the courses there. Yes. So yes, there's a repeat there. I did miss that. Thank you.
Peter, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you're saying these rows of numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when that row of numbers is coming up? Do you have to look at every row and know what the sequence is in every row until you get to that one, and then by the time you recognise it, the opportunity to call's gone? How does that work?
Well, I don't. To be perfectly honest, I don't check every course end. I don't have the mental capacity to do that. I do have signposts along the way, though. So, for example, the one that I started with, I really only bother checking every third course end that we get the rotation of the rounds, basically. So the 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 6, 7. I mean, my theory is if you can ring 3 courses, which takes about 10 minutes, and if something goes wrong just after that, and you find out 10 minutes later, people aren't going to lynch you down the street for ringing for far too long if that happened just in the last 10 minutes. For here, I'd pick out certain rows. So, for example, these ones you don't actually get to see the course end, so you can't actually use it as a bookmark. So, I personally, I would definitely remember that one at the end of the S and the L with no single 14. I would definitely check to see if that row came up, and I just remember that's one of my signposts. And I might pick a couple of others. This one would be a key one to know that you're halfway, that you've got the 2 and the 3 and the 4 swapped over, the 4 and the 1 are swapped over, the 5 and the 6 are in their usual position. So just a couple of things like that. I personally can't memorize every single course end. It's too much for me. So, but I'd just be looking for signposts along the way. Just pick things. I'd say relatively at random, but yeah, not too far apart, because no one wants to be ringing for half of the quarter peel to find out that something went wrong at the very start. I've seen that happen before.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay. Right. Next one. So let's go at my notes. Okay. So let's take a look at which one was going to third in the middle column. Okay. So here's a different way of writing something, but it's still got the calling positions. Okay. So here, there's no X's for twin bobs. They are single bobs or singles. You got a 3 and an 8. Okay. So again, this is based off where the 7 is. So as you start the first course, it comes along. So you got started at 1, 2. As you're doing your double 4, 5 down, you're calling position number 3. You call a bob, and only one. Go through, pass 4, pass 5, all planes. As you're going out slow, you call. There's no call in this course. So literally, in that first course, there's a bob at 3, and that's it. Okay. Second course comes along. There's another bob at 3. Okay, just as well, because otherwise, if we didn't have that, it'd be false. So second bob at 3, go through, and then as we're going out slow, we get to calling position number 8. There's an S for a single. So we call that there. We go and do our 4, 5 up, 6, 7 up, blah, blah, blah. And then again, there's nothing until you get to the same position, the next course. Then you call a bob. Bring a whole plane course, get to a calling position again. Call your second bob. Another plane course, get the calling position number 8. Call your last single. I'll say your last single in this particular part, because as you can see, it says repeat twice. So you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it should be 5 courses. That's right. 5 courses for each part, and you do that 3 times in total, giving you 15 courses for the quarter appeal. So that's a way, if you don't know, if you can't remember what an S and an H and an L and a Q is, you can just call something like that. If you just remember, 3 is when you do your double 4, 5 down, going in slow. 8 is when you're about to leave the front. That's all you need to know. And in fact, that's exactly what I did for my first quarter appeal of Stedman Triples. I got asked to call one at very, very short notice. I didn't really know all the S's, H's, L's and Q's at that point. I just thought 3 and 8, right? I can do that, right? So I called that exact same thing. Yeah, it's a little bit simple. You don't have to remember which one's H again. I hadn't learned the pattern by that stage. So that's a different way of calling it. So if you see the numbers up the top here, so the 3 and the 8, or the 2 and the 14, those are the calling positions that we have here, okay? But there's some more things here which do not have those calling positions, which is why I've just got rid of them, okay? So let's take a look at the ones down the bottom right here. So if some of you were on Chris Armani's chat last week about Grantzer, you would have seen these same sort of composition styles before. This basically means that these are the number of 6s between each call. I say between each call. You make a call on the nth, as it were, 6. So let's take a look at this particular one here. So you start off with rounds, or despite saying 2, 3, 1, we've talked about that. So you playing for the first bob, playing for the second bob. Sorry, try that again. Playing for the first 6, playing for the second 6. In the third 6, you call a single. Okay. Then you've got a playing, and then the second 6, you call another single. So playing, playing, single, playing, single. Then you've got 8 more planes before a bob. And then that will get you to this row at the course end, okay? 8 planes is quite a lot to remember, but yeah, so and then it rotates. You can see this one actually has the number 7 written down in the course ends. It's not here because the 7 is fixed. Here you can see the 7 is well and truly getting in the mess that's going on here, okay? So in the second part, the 7 is not starting from 7th place, it's starting from 4th place, okay? So when you see touches like this, it really doesn't matter where you're calling it from. If you can just keep track of the number of 6s between each call, then you can call this from anywhere. It doesn't matter what 1 iota, okay? A little thing to watch out for. So you can see here is a 3 that single 3, single 2. Here you've got 7 planes, and then on the 8th, 6th, you got a bob. Then it's plain, single, plain, bob. Okay. If you have a call or whatever it is, doesn't have, it can be a bob or single, doesn't matter. This one's a single, this one's a bob, and then it's an S2. You have got the same bell making reverse 6th for the single. It can't get anywhere else at the way. That has to happen. So here you can see these 2 calls. The 5 is at the back because it's made reverse 6. Here, the 4 does it twice. So if it's affected at the call at 8, it does reverse 6 for this one. It does reverse 6 again for this one. So the 4 is having a great old time doing a lot of work in 6, 7. Okay. And again, just to point things out, with this particular composition here, it talks about single 3, single 2, but there's nothing here. It's a plain 2. It means that you go plain, plain. That's your course, your block, not your course end, but yeah, that's the end of the composition. That's your part end. That's what it's for, your part end. But it means you start counting it from 1 to get to the next 3. So plain 1, plain 2, single 3, plain 1, plain 2, single 3, plain 1, plain 2, part end. Let's repeat 5 times, so you go back here. So plain 1, plain 2, single 3 again. So in fact, there's actually 4 planes in reality, but 2 of them are from the previous part, the first 2 are from the new part. So just something you need to be mindful of when you see there's no call, but there is a number there. You've got to call these 2 as planes and then start from scratch again at the top. Okay.
Pete?
Yeah.
Pete, just one thing, just to throw something in here, from a mug's perspective, all right, look at those 252s down there and that 288 you've just been talking about. Somebody turns up to me and says, oh, Andrew, could you call this 252? And they showed me that in the diary. I would look there. I'd look along the top row of numbers. It says 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can you just move your little hot cursor up to the actual starting here, the 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7. I look along there, and then I look down to the last row of numbers that says 3, 5, 1, 7, 2, 4, 6. And I look vertically from one down to the other, and I see, is there any bell that's in the same spot both times? And it's number 1.
Yep.
Look, 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 3, 5, 1, 7, 2, 4, 6. And I race over and I grab the treble. Because that bell is going to repeat its work each part, you know. So you'll be calling the same thing the 3 times, whereas everybody else is getting mixed around, and you're going to have to remember 3 6s, 2 6s, 9 6s. Whereas if you call it from the 1, you're going to get the same work. You're going to make the calls in the same place each part. So the 252s, I just had a look while you're talking there. You grab the treble if you're calling either of those. And if somebody asked me to call that 288, I'd say, call it yourself, because nobody repeats their work at all. Everybody's on the rota. So just look out for that. That'll be coming up in my Grants and Triples talk. But look out for repeating work.
The 288.
One other really
2 singles would be the same, right? So the 2 would be the one to ring for the 288.
Where are we?
So the singles for the 288,
yes.
the 2 is doing the same thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but it's at the part end. It's in a different spot.
It's not. It gets moved to bill number 3.
Oh, sure. Sorry, for the next part end. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd call it from one of the back 4, because you've got 2 different calling positions. So the 4 goes to here, then we'll go back to here. The 5 goes to here, then we'll go back to here. 6 here, 7 there. That's how I chose it, but it's a bit more complicated, yeah. Whereas the 360, the 4 actually ends up in the same position at the end. That's the only one. The 1, 2, 3 rotate, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 rotate as well. Okay. Actually, is that right? Yes.
Yeah, 3's the same in both.
Yeah. So. Oh yes, it is. I was trying to work out. I'd looked at this before. Yeah. So 1 and 2 swap over. 5, 6, 7 rotate, which is why there's 6 parts, because lowest common denominator. One other little signpost: if you do see something which is repeat twice, like these 252s, 3, 5, 1, 7, 2, 4, 6. Again, you're seeing the end of the course, but at the 4th row of the quick 6, that's queens. Okay, there are a number of compositions of Stedman which are 3 parts. Starting rounds. If you get queens at the end of the part, and you call the same thing again, you must get titums at the end of the second part. 1, 5, 2, 6, 3, 7, 4, 8. You must do it, okay? And at the third part, you get rounds. It's just the way that the numbers rotate. So you can, if you want to do a bit of exercise, you can see for yourself. that's how things work. Okay, but that's another little conducting signpost for you to find out. You probably wouldn't know the first time I was looking at them. What the hell is 3517246? I got no idea. And you ring and said, "Ooh, Queens, didn't expect that." And later on, "Ooh, Titums. Oh, I have to remember this one." Any three part that has Queens at the end of the first part will have Titums at the end of the second part. So just something, a little FYI. Right, I know that time's racing away, so I'll just quickly go into the bottom left-hand corner, because you're probably thinking, what on earth's going on here? This is the one that I was telling you about where it's not actually calling positions, and this is much more like caters and above, okay? Because in caters and sinks and all that, they don't know what an S, an H, and an L, and a Q was. They don't have numbers, or they have numbers at the top, but they're not of this style. They're of this style, okay? So here is a bunch of lengths of touches, and A followed by an E, or B followed by an E, or these ones here, an A, and a B. But they say you can rotate them if you want. You can do ABA or BAA. That's all fine. They'll still give you a 288. That's true. But these numbers here, which are separated typically by full stops, they are the number of sixes in the course. Okay, so let's go for a fairly easy one. Look at number B, 1, 3, 5, 13. So you'll say, "Go Stedman Bob," for your Bob at 1, then there will be a plane. Then you call a Bob at 3, then there'll be a plane, then there'll be a Bob at 5. So you can see number 6 is the course. Plane 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Bob at 13. Then it'll be a plane at 14. It's not written there. I have to check. One thing I was about to say, you have to check to see how many sixes are in the course, because they can be anything. But yes, as Andrew was saying before, because again, it's that same row, 3517246 here. Well, if you're the treble, when you end up doing the quick work, you know you come to the end of the course. Okay. Same thing with A. Bob at 1, plane at 2, 3, 4, Bob at 5, plane at 6, 7, Bob at 8, Bob at 9, Bob at 10, Bob at 11, and then planes again until the 1 becomes the quick bell. Okay. So that's what these calling positions are here and what they mean. Okay. So one thing you'll see here is the full stop limits the 2 calls. So here, just to be crystal clear, it's a Bob at 1, plane at 2, Bob at 3, plane at 4, single at 5. So you see the S is written after the number, okay? But there's a full stop in there, so you make sure it is a single at 5, not a single at 7, okay? It's just being crystal clear. So plane at 6, Bob at 7, plane at 8, Bob at 9, plane at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or however many there are, okay? So that's what all these calling positions mean. And if you want to call 117 as Stedman triples, you call this course followed by this one. Now, here's a little gotcha. It's a 117. It's going to come around at hand stroke. So just be prepared for that. If you're used to having, it's going to come around at the 4th row of the quick 6. Nope, not this one. Or the one underneath it, or the one underneath it, or the one underneath it, or the one underneath it. With Stedman, it can come around at any change of a 6. So you just got to be slightly aware for that. So yeah, keep an eye on the front bells, and if you see that 1, 2, 3 are pulling off, say that's all. And then you know you got it right. So now, like I said, this is the way it works on higher numbers. So here's a fairly simple quarter peal of Stedman caters, and here's a very complicated snippet of Stedman sinks. I'll explain why I've got the first complicated one. Let's go for the easy one first, okay? So you got your first course, again, 2, 3, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All the bells are listed here because you can see the back ones get shunted around a fair bit, okay? So after the first course, single at 1, plane at 2, plane at 3, Bob at 4, plane at 5, 6, 7, 8, Bob at 9, plane, Bob, plane, Bob, Bob, plane, plane. That's your course end, okay? And you get 2, 1, 4, 3, 6, 5, 9, 7, 8, okay? So that's your first course. Then you get into what I would say is easy street. On higher numbers, the calls are much less frequent. So here you got a bob at 5 and a bob at 16, and then you ring a whole plane course and you ring your second bob at 16. So that's what that 2 means, okay? And then again, bob at 5, bob at 16, whole plane course, second bob at 16. This one, bob at 5, single at 16, and that's the end of your what's called the A block. This composition has defined that as what an A is. And you can see underneath here, you have a turning course and then A. What's a turning course? Okay. Turning course basically is something which shunts the bells around before you get back into your holding pattern, as it were. This is fairly simple calling here. So this is move the back. I was going to say between here, other bells will be affected, but the 8 and the 9 have swapped over just from this turning course. And then you ring A again, okay? But it doesn't mean that other bells can be affected or unaffected during this. It's like here, this one shows the 5 as ending up in the same position at the end of this 5 and 2, 16. But I can tell you, it's affected by every one of those 3 calls. It gets in the same position at the end, but it's affected. Whereas the 6, I can tell you, is not affected. You can't exactly tell. It's only when you write these things out that you actually find out, which Anna can tell you all about. When I said, "Oh, if you ring this bell, you'll be unaffected during the quarter peal." No, she just end up in the same position at the end of each course. Yes, I got a nice dirty look from that during the quarter peal, didn't I, Anna? But the simple thing here is that they're all the same number of 6s in a course. When you get to something a bit more complicated, the course end is wherever the conductor draws the line into the course. So you got some here which are 26s long. You've got some. Here's one. The real reason I picked it up. You got your standard number of 6s in Stedman sinks going through here. I won't go into too much detail here. But then after this line here, there's a plane for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bob at 7, plane 8. Bob at 9, plane 10. Bob at 11. Plane 12, plane 13, single at 14, and then you've got 14 more 6s before you get to this change. The back bells are nowhere near the back. In fact, this is reverse rounds. The conductors have said, I'm just highlighting this so you know you're going to get reverse rounds. That's your course end. So as the poor conductor's got to call, 14 planes, got to remember, well, there's a signpost, you're going to get reverse rounds at the end of it, okay? Then you got this next one where you got, calls coming left, right, and centre, but it's only 14 6s long, it's a bit shorter, and then you get your back bells near the back again. So the conductor goes, right, okay, I'm in a place I know now. So you need to keep an eye on where the course ends are to know how many 6s there are in the course, because the person who wrote this composition out in this way, who kindly put in number 6s, which may have been me, makes things a lot easier. But if you don't get these bracketed information, and there's no reason they have to, they just have to tell you when the course end is, you just need to watch out for that. So don't think all courses are the same number of 6s long. You have to be very careful for that. This one is pretty simple. So they are pretty much all the same. Right. One last thing, because I know we started late and I'm going slightly over time even more. I just want to quickly go and talk about this Stedman cadence composition. So this is it on Complib. If you're not aware of it, Complib is a website which has tens of thousands of compositions on there. Peals, quarter peals, short touches. It's got everything, okay? So with this, there's an option when you take a look at a composition, you can look at the blue line, okay? Now, the reason I'm showing this, I wouldn't call this one from the 9 personally. It's just by default, it shows the highest number bell. I usually call it from the 7. You can call it from the 6. You can call it from the 1, but be that as it may. I'm just going to zoom through here, and here we go. So if I'm calling this, now I'm coming from the back, now there's a bob at 5. You can see here, actually, see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. Right, so I'm looking here. Bob at 5, the 5th makes the bob, and the bells 3, 4 are dodging in 8, 9. Okay, so they do another 3 dodges at the back. When I'm coming from the back, dodging with the 6, I pass the 3, I dodge with the 4, and I pass the 5. Okay. I know that the 5 is going to make the bob. Well, I should know because this last one of the effective bells I pass. So it goes from the last to the first. So when I see the bells come back down to the front, while I'm still down the front, the 5 will be the first one in, and then the 3 will come in, and then the 4 will come in. Because I saw 3, 4, 5, now I'm seeing 5, 3, 4. Okay. Same sort of thing when we get bob at 16. So the 4 makes the bob, and the 2 and the 5 are the other bells. So as I'm coming towards the front, I pass the 2. So I pass the 5 first, dodge with the 2, and I pass the 4. So 5, 2, 4. I call the bob as I'm going in, about to go in quick. I then pass the bells in 4, then pass the 5, then dodge with the 2. So 5, 2, 4 becomes 4, 5. 5, 2, 4 becomes 4, 5, 2. Okay. So those are things you can see afterwards. You can see, but if you know who's going to be affected by the calls, and that's the good thing about 7, 6, and 7 caters. When the calls are so far apart, you can just look at individual calls because there's not a call with a few 6s either side of it. You can actually see that which bells are going to be affected, and afterwards you can see when you pass them again that they will have been affected in the right way. So that's a way of keep making sure that the bells affected at the back are in the right spot. I'll only do it for things like 5, 16, 16. I wouldn't be doing that all the time for things like this unless I know who the bells are at 11, 13, 14, who's stuck at the back and things like that. And these 2 calls, I've got enough capacity to work out, oh, okay, I know it's going to be these 3 bells and these 3 bells because it only happens once in the composition. That other one which I showed you, there's no way in hell I'll be doing that when you've got calls coming left, right, and centre. So, right. I've gone quite on long enough. Does anyone have any questions or want any clarifications? Stunned silence, I think.
It's quite a lot to absorb, but that's helpful to start.
Yeah, it's probably worth watching us again a couple of times. Unfortunately, it means you're going to have to listen to my voice a couple of times. But just trying to absorb all the information, and just work out what these are. If you've still got questions, ask someone in your local tower, or bug me, or James, or Andrew, or Richard, or whoever. Plenty of people to find out what's going on.
Thanks, Peter. That was great. I'll just stop this.